I chose that reading because I think it describes perfectly the place that we need to be in when we're creating space for harmony to happen. This is the series that we're doing at the moment. It's all about creating space. And what's just described there in the Tao Te Ching is what needs to happen in our lives in order for us to create harmony for ourselves and those around us. The idea of being careful, courteous, fluid, shapeable, receptive, clear. All of that describes what we need to bring to the party when we're creating space for others. And then that fantastic line, do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till right action arises by itself? It's one of my favorite lines from the Tao. To let all the stuff settle within us. Last week I was talking about how we actually go in there and intervene in situations, how we create the space for people to transform. And I was saying that you just got to really wait and be guided as to what to say. And what this is saying is you have to let the stuff within us settle. And that's the judgments that we have, the opinions. When we go into situations, we have so many judgments and opinions. The attitudes and the thoughts that allow right action to arise by itself. And then that final line, the master doesn't seek fulfillment, not seeking, not expecting, she is present and can welcome all things. Just being present and welcoming all things. If only we could be in that space and create that space around us. If only there were people that went around the world doing that, creating that space. But you know, they're so scarce. People willing to create that space from nothing. Even the most famous spiritual gurus seem to come with so many requirements. I mean, I have to say, inside view here, we book speakers, to come to the chapel here. And it's amazing the difference between some of the people we invite and how they respond. Some of them say, I ring them up or write to them and say, look, would you like to come speak at the chapel? And they just say, yeah. They don't ask about money. They don't ask about what the situation is. They just trust the whole thing. And then I write to them saying, you're going to be staying with me, or whatever it is. And I tell them what the situation is. And, they just, allow it to happen. Money, flights, accommodation, they just let it happen. And often it's only when they arrive that I produce a check that's never been asked for by them. About half the people we invite are like that. The other half argue about money, first-class flights, rooms in 5-star hotels. They need a private space, not in a home, and all sorts of riders that go right the way down to the sort of fruit they want in the green room before they come on. That's my office. So even in the area of spiritual teachers, the idea of not seeking, not expecting, and being present to welcome all things is actually quite rare. So heaven knows what, us mere mortals, what's expected of us. And I don't know about you, but, the truth to be told, it doesn't come naturally with me either. I have a lot of expectations and things. I bring all my opinions and attitudes with me wherever I go. And that includes the opinion that I've supposedly left all these things behind me and that I'm coming in free of my opinions and attitudes. When in reality, I've come into the room laden with all this baggage so that there's barely enough room for me to sit down with the person that I'm sitting next to. And yet I pretend to myself and to others that I've somehow freed myself from all of this. And yet the magic trick is that when you acknowledge all these things, the baggage miraculously disappears. And it's when you don't acknowledge it that it stays around. So I'm going to just show you a little clip from a film that some of you have seen. It's from The Mission. And actually, while this is coming down, we've been having this film series, which has been quite interesting. I'm going to show you, we've got one coming up on 7 years in Tibet. But The Mission is one of the films that I'd like to bring here if we do actually end up repeating this. And this is an amazing scene. And we're talking about, dragging baggage here. And this is an incredible scene where Robert De Niro has, in his own mind, done lots of things wrong, and he realizes that he's in error. And he feels that he has to drag his baggage with him. And so as penance, he drags all his armor with him as they go up to the mission. So let's just show this.
Quiero parar.
Tiga papung.
we tend to take our baggage with us. And it's up to us to free ourselves so that we can act. And when we do that, when we free ourselves from all the baggage that we carry around with us, it enables us to come into the present moment and welcome all things. And this is the truly enlightened state. When we let the baggage go and we've come into the present moment, that is the enlightened state. And it's in that state that we're able to make a difference to those around us. Now, this may sound like I'm setting the bar fairly high here, in that before you do any of this stuff, you have to get enlightened. And if that's true, then sort of what hope is there for any of us? I was reading the story the other day of Jesus and the rich young man. And it's the one about Nicodemus. And he goes up to him and basically says, "What must I do to be enlightened?" And Jesus says, "Go and sell everything that you have and give it to the poor, and you'll have treasure in heaven, and then come and follow me." And he was crestfallen. And his disciples then said, "Well, who on earth is able to be saved?" And it's the same, with us really. Who on earth, if you have to be enlightened first, it looks absolutely impossible. But I think in this case it's not. On one level, you do have to be enlightened to make a difference to those around us. But we also have so much baggage around the word enlightenment. There's so much stuff that we have about enlightenment, about being enlightened. And when we translate it, what's it mean to be enlightened? Oh, it's to experience unity of consciousness. It's realizing the nature of the soul. It's being one with the universe. It's seeing the light. It's becoming a master. There's a whole load of descriptions when you talk about someone being enlightened. And people are really frightened about saying, if someone says, "Are you enlightened?" No one's going to say yes. Because, you're sort of setting yourself up. I think it's tosh. I think all that stuff, about, becoming enlightened master, in reality, for me, enlightenment is really, it does, in England we have an ad which is, it does what it says on the can. Do you have that here? No, it's about some paint stripper, and, it's called paint stripper, and the thing is, it does what it says on the can. It strips paint. And similarly with enlightenment, I think, it does what it says on the can. It's a description of what it's about. Being enlightened is to live life lightly, to be light as you tread around your life. Just as Robert De Niro felt light as the burden he was carrying was released from him. To be enlightened is to lay down your baggage so that you can travel through life unencumbered by those thoughts and judgments and worries that we always carry with us. I think that really is the true meaning of being enlightened. There's a lightness about you. You are really in the moment and not in the past and not in the future. You are fully enjoying what's really happening right now. And when you do that, I don't know if you notice it, joy naturally comes up when you're doing that. And we do get into those situations when we're working, we're doing stuff. We suddenly find ourselves in the zone, in the space, and that joy does come through. You're focused on experiencing, and therefore all experience becomes rich for you. You're welcoming whatever comes your way. And when you encounter people, you come to them afresh with a beginner's mind, as we say in meditation. Now, I think actually this is not such a difficult thing to do. All it involves is letting go of trying to control what's going to happen. It involves letting go of trying to control what's going to happen. You let go of your worries about the past, which are really worries about the future. And you let go of your worries about the future, which you you actually can't control the future anyway, and you let go of all the judgments you have about those you come across in life. Now, letting go of the judgments is a bit more difficult, I'll grant you that, but it's more doable. I think what I'm saying is more doable than trying to screw your mind into a place where you're going to experience unity of consciousness or do all the stuff that goes together to get you to a point where you have this some sort of enlightenment experience. That's a lot more difficult in letting go of judgments. We set this bar so high when it comes to enlightenment that we almost never achieve it. Meditating for hours in the hope that we might someday get a glimpse of something that hardly anyone's glimpsed anyway. It's a recipe for failure. But this idea of enlightenment is much simpler. And it's in everybody's grasp. All you have to do is to want it and to follow through on it. It's not as difficult as trying to experience Satori. But it does require the presence of mind to remember that you are on a mission and that you've set yourself a task and that you must remember to let go. You have to remember to do it. Most of the time it's because we forget. We just drag these things all around with us. We forget to let go. That's all it is. It's remembering to let go. Letting go of our opinions, letting go of our attitudes, letting go of the desire to control, our judgments, and all of the rest of it. And the reason most of us are not enlightened, and we drag our sorry asses around the place, is that we forget. We forget to let go. We forget to remember to let go. And because of that, we carry on being unenlightened. It's so easy to forget. I've recently got hearing aids. And you can ask me about them later, but they are so comfortable. They're so comfortable, and they work, and have them on my phone, and when I go to a restaurant, I can go into restaurant mode. They weren't expensive, and if anyone's interested, I'll tell you. But anyway, they were so comfortable that the other day, I went swimming. Dived into the pool, swimming along, thinking how marvelous I was doing exercise, swimming back. And as I got to my third length, I realized I still got my hearing aids in. So I had to quickly get to the other thing and get out. And so I rushed to the changing room, took my hearing aids out and put them on the thing. And I got the blower out and stuff like that. Luckily, they all worked again. I looked on the internet. But I was just so used to wearing them. It's the same. You were just so used to dragging ourselves around the place that, you forget. We're comfortable with our baggage. We don't even think of putting it down. And all this stuff about mindfulness and enlightenment, about all the apps and books and seminars, what they're all really about is about being mindful enough to let go as we go about our lives. That's really what it's. That's all mindfulness is to remember to let go. As we leave here, we remember to let go of our worries about the election or whatever, and we go down to reception, open to receive anybody that comes up towards us, And then mindful enough to let go of the judgments we have about the guy that comes up to us that we previously thought was very high maintenance and we didn't really want to talk to. You have to let go of that. You just have to be there, mindful enough to let go of all the thoughts we're having and just enjoy the food. And as we walk out of the building, we don't carry our thoughts with us. We let the sun shine in our faces. We see the beauty of the yellow leaves. We feel the joy rise within the base of our stomachs and come up to our chest, and we enjoy this blissful moment that we're giving. That's what it is. This is true enlightenment. It brings joy, and it's truly available to everyone. And it's no wonder there's so much darkness around the world, with everyone carrying around those burdens like Robert De Niro dragging them around. It's no wonder we don't have time for each other. We're resentful and blaming, and we're unwilling to give others the time of day, let alone the space to heal. Yet I think the answer is so simple. It's within our grasp. It's getting enlightened and let go of all the reasons why we can't be enlightened. That's the first job. I came across his reading this morning, actually, from Dogen Zenji. And this little reading talks about just letting go of everything and letting the circumstances and everything in our lives enlighten us. Just be there for us. That's what I call the rocks are hard and water's wet aspect of enlightenment, which just is what it is. And it says, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self, in other words, all this stuff going on, is to be awakened by all things. In other words, to be awakened by everything that's in front of us. When awakened by all things, the body and mind of the self and other fall away. When we're in the present moment, all the rest of the stuff, even our ideas about enlightenment, they fall away. No trace of realization remains. It's not about that. And this traceless realization continues endlessly. Traceless realization. That's what this is. But the trouble is we convince ourselves that we're not enlightened. And there's no way we're going to get enlightened unless we spend 3 years in a silent retreat, which we're never going to do, let's face it. Or we travel to Mexico for an ayahuasca ceremony, which we probably won't do either. And I know there's some people in this room who have done this. And if we do, there's no guarantee that we'll come back in one piece from that particular ceremony. I mean, what's it going to do? So we have to let go of the reasons for not being enlightened. And then we have to decide that we want to be enlightened. Not in the biblical sense, which is all that stuff, guru biblical sense of being enlightened. And by that I mean in the way that we are indoctrinated by religions to think about enlightenment, but in the everyday sense, the traceless sense, in wanting to live life lightly, to feel light, to be light, to bring lightness to others. And the way we do that is by letting go of our baggage and being mindful enough to realize that when you've picked it all up again, you have to put it down. And believe me, it's a continual process. It's a life's work doing this. But as you continue to do it, it becomes easier because you remember it more often and you begin to feel that lightness. You begin to feel the lightness. It's what they don't tell you on monastic retreats, that it's easy, that it's meant to be easy. Because life is meant to be easy. Behind me is my icon. Now, I used to go to Hillfield Friary, which is a Franciscan friary in England. And I saw this icon painter there, and he's painting this icon. Oh, what? Difficult. I want one of those. so I got him to paint the icon for me. This is 30 or so years ago. And so he painted this icon. I use it every day nowadays. But what he said to me, he said, when you get your icon like this, particularly this one, the Bible's open, and you can choose your own Bible verse to go in there, And whatever it is you want to be the key verse, you can put it in there, and it's okay. It doesn't really matter what verse it is. And the verse I chose to put in there is, "Come unto me, all who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And that is the enlightened message of Jesus. It is that when we let go of it all, there is rest. This is a series about creating space for others to experience the harmony in their lives. And for us to do that, we have to create the space for harmony in our own lives so that we can come to others with the gift of the present moment. And for us to do that, we have to be in the present moment. You can't get in the present moment unless you're in the present moment. That at least of this makes sense, doesn't it? You can't get in the present moment unless you're in the present moment. And for us to be there, we have to let go of everything and just be with the joy of life. Now, I was very tempted to have pens and paper, for you to pick up from under your chair, which is what they do, and to write down all the things that you carry around with you and that you're carrying around now, and all the opinions and attitudes that you've got, the resentments, the blame, the worry, the concern, the judgments about everything else, and all the rest of it. There's no point. You're so familiar with them. You know what they are. They're all just there because they're always with you. All you have to do is to remember to let go of them. Now. Boom. Just see if you can just let go and just come into the present moment. But, after I burbled on for a while, you're going to forget again. And you'll have to remember again and let go again. And the trick in life is to remember to be enlightened. It's as simple as that. And anyone who tells you that it's more complicated than that has an agenda that they want you to follow. And after you've followed their agenda, after you've done all the stuff that the gurus say, it will come down to exactly the same thing. Once you've experienced what they're wanting you to have, if you did manage to experience that, seeing the light experience, let me tell you, it'll take you 10 years to calm down afterwards. And let me tell you, the idiot you were before you had the experience, you'll be the same idiot after you've had the experience as well. It'll take you at least 10 years to integrate that experience. And do you know what you'll end up? The place you'll end up in is this place, which is realizing that you just have to be light. You have to let go of all the stuff. So you might as well save all that time, all that searching, all those 10 years of getting used to it, and just do it now. You don't have to go through all that stuff if you just get it. And you can get it. It is gettable. That is how we solve the problems of the world, one person at a time. One problem at a time. By reminding people that if they want to, they could be enlightened. But they have to want it. And when they do, you can show them how. And, perhaps it'll spread. I said a few weeks ago I had space after my talk. So this is the space. If Heather's watching, you say, "Oh, goody, he created some space afterwards." You've got to follow through on that. So yeah. Anyway. So does anybody want to come back to me on anything like that? Either argue, ask a question, share an experience? Yeah, Louisa. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment on the clip when the baggage is cut, which was a relief, but you couldn't tell if he was crying or laughing or crying or laughing. And you say sometimes, "Oh, just let it go." But some people, that's what I'm saying, you might have been crying to let go of that baggage.
Yes.
So that was just a perspective I had.
No, that's lovely. I saw both there. I saw tears of relief and then a realization of how stupid it was to be carrying the baggage around. And everybody came together and realized that something had happened. Thank you, Louise. That's great. I do appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody else? Lou.
I just want to thank you, Nicholas. This has just been typically a beautiful service. I just really love you, love the space, and appreciate all of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you. I appreciate that too. Yeah, Maureen.
I agree. And also, I was thinking, you say remember, and we get into the process of life, and, I've got a whole bookshelf lined with the 4 agreements and the power of now, and you name it. Yeah. But one of the things I found was a companion piece to the power of now called the Power of Now Exercise Essentials or something like that. Anyhow, it's a 2-hour listen. So I'm in my car, and I'm obsessing about something. I'll put that, and then I realize, oh my gosh, get back here. And it's like we're constantly teaching ourselves, and it's one thing for you to get up here and tell us and impart this beautiful wisdom, but, again, you're always saying practice, but I just feel like this was something I found that helps me kind of every day. It's there. I can say, okay, you need to get back. The power of now, essential exercises, listen to it.
I think that's lovely to actually create something that reminds you. In the old Catholic Church, they always used to put these hair shirts on, and they used to put, in that film where the bloke put the things that stabbed into him, all that. The whole purpose of all that stuff, supposedly, was to remind them that they were, in Christ, and absolutely ridiculous. But just a little thing to remind one. You've got something there, but you can actually create little things just to remind you, just to come into the present and let go of stuff. I think it's a really good idea. Thank you. Anybody else? Eric.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how we think we're often told we should let go, and it's a personal choice. So we need to let go of our baggage.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting about this scene is that he doesn't make the choice. This random person who's just observing him with complete skepticism, just like, what is going on? This is insane. Okay, I'm going to cut the baggage. And recently I was driving to Denver, actually, for my mother's memorial, and something totally unexpected happened, which was I let go of my war with my father, and the baggage was gone. So somebody cut my baggage. Maybe it was God, maybe it was the subconscious.
Yes.
Somebody cut it. Anyway, it was gone. I feel relieved. I didn't expect it, and I'm very grateful for it.
I love that, Eric, actually. And it does happen, doesn't it? Where suddenly something just makes a difference. And it can be out of left of center, but you have to actually be conscious enough, as you obviously were, to think that has happened, to remember that. I remember with my mother. I always talk about my mother. But anyway, she, when I had, when I was in the human potential movement, it's not something she liked at all. So we were really at odds with each other. And the moment I did just mention this the other week, that when I went into the church, she was very suspicious. And then suddenly she realized. And from that moment onwards, my relationship with her was totally transformed. It was as if the baggage had been cut in her eye. And we just had 30 years together of completely loving each other and no worries about what we were thinking. It was just about us. And I think it's a lovely thing to remember, that one can allow this to happen to us. It doesn't have to be something we just sort of, if you let the gift come. Let the gift come when it does come. That's lovely. Yes, Amy.
Just simply, not only are we letting go of the baggage, which I loved the analogy today, also that gives us the space.
Yes.
And those two together are just such a perfect marriage. And it kind of requires one and the other, at least in my life. But I feel so much relief today after this talk and after this beautiful music that we get to sing to. Thank you.
Thank you. It does give us the space where we let go of the baggage. We're not, and if you even got the image of it, haven't you? If you let it go, then you haven't got all the stuff you're dragging around with you. That's lovely. Thank you. Anybody else? Donna.
This borders on embarrassment, I think, share. But I couldn't help it with this topic. I had a day a couple of days ago that I just was, it wasn't extraordinary, but it was just lovely. Everything felt content and I was grateful. It was a day of a lot of gratitude, and I stopped and said to myself, is that what enlightenment is? And then I thought, well, I'm still eating chocolate, so probably not.
So say it again. What did you think? What did you?
So I was having this grateful day, and I was sort of musing about it, and I said, "Is that enlightenment?" And
then I said to myself, well, I'm still eating chocolate, so it's probably not.
No, that's exactly what we do to ourselves, isn't it? We deny, it is exactly what, I had that same feeling. I was driving down to Glenwood Springs. I'm about to start a pottery class. And I was driving down to Glenwood Springs, and I suddenly had this overwhelming experience. The mountains were there was some great music on, and I thought, wow. And it came to me that, a lot of what I'm talking about today came to me in that particular moment. I didn't have anything else. And we're still the same person afterwards as we were before. And if we remember that, we stop beating ourselves up about it. That's great. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great.